The Iran-Iraq War, which lasted from 1980 to 1988, was one of the longest and most destructive conflicts of the 20th century in the Middle East. It was a brutal war of attrition that resulted in massive casualties, economic devastation, and long-lasting geopolitical consequences for both nations and the wider region. The roots of the conflict were deeply embedded in historical tensions, territorial disputes, ideological differences, and the ambitions of the two nations' leaders. The war began when Iraq, under the leadership of Saddam Hussein, launched a full-scale invasion of Iran, hoping to take advantage of the political chaos following the Iranian Revolution of 1979. However, what was expected to be a quick victory turned into a protracted and bloody struggle that neither side could decisively win. The origins of the Iran-Iraq War can be traced back to centuries of rivalry between the two nations, shaped by ethnic, religious, and territorial disputes. One of the most contentious issues was the control of the Shatt al-Arab waterway, a strategically vital river formed by the confluence of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which served as a crucial shipping route for both countries. A 1975 agreement mediated by Algeria had temporarily settled the dispute by dividing the waterway along the Thalweg, median line. But Saddam Hussein sought to overturn this agreement, seeing an opportunity to reclaim full Iraqi control. Additionally, Iraq was concerned about the influence of the Iranian Revolution, fearing that the Shia Islamist ideology of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini would inspire uprisings among Iraq and its own Shia population, which formed a majority but was ruled by a Sunni-dominated Ba'athist regime. On September 22, 1980, Iraq launched a surprise invasion of Iran, bombing Iranian air bases and sending ground troops across the border. Saddam Hussein believed that Iran, weakened by the revolution and the subsequent purges of its military leadership, would be unable to mount an effective defense. Initially, Iraqi forces made significant advances, capturing the city of Khorramshahr and pushing into Iranian territory. However, the Iraqi offensive soon stalled as Iran mobilized a fierce resistance, relying on both its remaining conventional military forces and the newly formed Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. The Iranian forces, motivated by revolutionary zeal and religious fervor, launched counteroffensives that pushed Iraqi troops back, reclaiming lost territory by 1982. Despite these setbacks, Saddam Hussein refused to negotiate a peace settlement, and the war descended into a grueling stalemate characterized by trench warfare, massive human wave attacks, and the extensive use of chemical weapons. Iraq, with significant financial and military backing from Arab Gulf states, the Soviet Union, and Western powers, including the United States, France, and Germany, had superior weaponry and logistical support. Iran, meanwhile, relied on its larger population and ideological motivation, often employing young, poorly trained volunteers, including teenagers, in suicidal assaults against Iraqi positions. The war became increasingly brutal, with both sides targeting civilian populations through artillery bombardments and airstrikes. One of the most infamous aspects of the conflict was Iraq's widespread use of chemical weapons, including mustard gas, and nerve agents against Iranian troops and even Kurdish civilians within Iraq who were suspected of supporting Iran. These attacks resulted in horrific casualties and long-term health consequences for survivors. Despite international condemnation, the global response was muted, partly due to the geopolitical dynamics of the Cold War and the desire of many Western and Arab states to prevent an Iranian victory. Iran, for its part, also employed chemical weapons on a smaller scale, though it lacked the same industrial capacity as Iraq. The war also had a significant impact on global oil markets, as both Iran and Iraq were major oil producers. Attacks on oil tankers and facilities in the Persian Gulf led to disruptions in supply, prompting foreign naval interventions to protect shipping lanes. The United States, in particular, became increasingly involved, conducting operations such as Operation Earnest Will to escort Kuwaiti oil tankers, reflagged as American vessels, and engaging in direct clashes with Iranian forces, including the destruction of Iranian naval assets and the accidental downing of an Iranian civilian airliner by the USS Vincennes in 1988, which killed 290 people. By 1987-1988, both nations were exhausted, with their economies in ruins and their populations suffering from severe deprivation. Iran, in particular, faced growing internal dissent due to the high human cost of the war and the government's refusal to accept peace offers. In July 1988, Iran finally agreed to a ceasefire under United Nations Security Council Resolution 598, which had been proposed a year earlier. The war ended with no clear victor, as neither side achieved its primary objectives. The borders remained largely unchanged, and the Shatt al-Arab dispute was left unresolved, though Iraq claimed a symbolic victory by regaining full control of the waterway in the final stages of the war. The human and economic toll of the Iran-Iraq War was staggering. Estimates of total casualties range from 500,000 to over 1 million dead, with many more wounded or displaced. Cities on both sides were devastated, and the financial cost ran into hundreds of billions of dollars, leaving both nations deeply in debt. The war also had profound long-term consequences. In Iraq, the financial strain contributed to Saddam Hussein's disastrous decision to invade Kuwait in 1990, leading to the Gulf War and eventual US invasion in 2003. In Iran, the war reinforced the revolutionary regime's siege mentality and shaped its militarized and confrontational foreign policy for decades to come. The Iran-Iraq War remains a defining event in the modern history of the Middle East, illustrating the dangers of regional rivalries, the devastating impact of foreign intervention, and the human cost of protracted conflict. It left deep scars on both nations, influencing their political trajectories and contributing to the instability that continues to plague the region today. The war also demonstrated the limitations of military power, as neither Iran's revolutionary fervor nor Iraq's superior weaponry could deliver a decisive victory. Instead, the conflict became a tragic example of mutual destruction, with lasting repercussions that extend far beyond the battlefield.